So this is Massive X. I'm on the beta version here, so it might look a bit different for you. You can always click on this little icon and check on your version number. Let's talk a little bit about the interface. This upper, slightly darker section over here will give you access to the 16 macros, so twice as many compared to Massive 1. There's some basic MIDI controls here, pitch bend, mod wheel, and aftertouch. There's a little drop-down menu here, which we can access to see the user preset folder, go to the Massive X webpage, change the size. I find this very helpful. So if you have a larger screen, you can actually make this larger. And if you feel it's taking up a bit too much screen real estate, you can always make it smaller as well. If you find that the presets are missing, you can click over here to rescan the preset folder. Talking about presets, clicking anywhere over here will open up the drop-down for the presets. These are all the categories, and within each category, we have the different presets. Let's load one and have a listen to this. That's the master volume control. I can quickly jump to the next preset in the list by clicking on this icon. And you can also go to the previous preset by clicking on this icon. You can tweak presets by changing up the macro controls here, or even changing anything on the user interface. And then hit this button here to save the preset. I'll rename this. And I'll also change the author name. And now, under the user category, we have this preset. There's also the quick start, which I'm going to be using a lot. There's an initialize preset. So loading this first initialize preset will give us that basic sawtooth tone. Let's talk about the main synthesis interface here. So we have two oscillators, unlike Massive 1 where you had 3. Though technically you can access a third oscillator from the insert effects over here. I'll show you that later. There are two noise generators, independent level controls for both. There's one dedicated filter, but there is a parallel and serial state variable filter mode if you want to create a patch that has multiple filters. As I mentioned earlier, these are the 3 insert effects, so 3 compared to 2 on Massive 1. Amp section and the send effects. We'll explore all this stuff in detail in this course later on. This middle section over here is where you can make all the modulation assignments. So let's say I can click on this crosshair and drop it wherever I see a little block like this. Once it's dropped, I can click and drag to set the modulation range, very much like Massive 1. Now this is a unipolar modulator, that's why you only see the one color. But let's try using this LFO here. And now when I click and drag, you'll see we have 2 shades to the arc, the regular green and the gray area. So this means the modulation is bipolar. Now LFOs can be changed to be bipolar, unipolar, or unipolar through 0. So a lot of flexibility there within the LFOs. There's this voice tab for setting your oscillator tuning options, unison option. There's a routing tab, which is a lot more advanced now compared to a Massive 1. We'll spend some time taking a look at some of the possibilities in this section here. Let's talk about the modulators. So clicking over here will let us access the different modulators. And then at the end over here, we have 4 trackers. So this is for oscillator key tracking, filter key tracking, or tracking for anything else, because as you can see, there's a crosshair, and you can assign this to any parameter. And lastly, there's this VR thing, which doesn't have a dedicated tab, and it definitely is not virtual reality. It stands for voice randomization. We'll take a look at an example of that later on as well. Let's go back to the modulators here. I just want to explain the possibilities with these 9 different modulators. The very first modulator is a dedicated amp envelope, which cannot be changed. But every other modulator can be changed to be anything else from this list here. So by default, we had the modulation envelope here, but I can change it to this exciter envelope, which is similar to modulator 3 here. I can change it to an LFO, or I can even change it to this random LFO. So technically, I can have 9 envelopes if I just go in and change all these to envelopes. Same for LFOs. You can just go in and change all of them to be LFOs. So very flexible now. You just have these 9 modulators. The first one is fixed to be the amp envelope, but all the other ones are swappable. All right, then lastly, over here at the bottom, we have the remote octave control. Now this is related to the performer. If I click on this little icon here, we have access to the remote mapping area. This remote octave provides a special key zone that gives access to 12 optional variations of the performers. So you can switch these up remotely using MIDI notes as key switches, or by just clicking directly over here. I'll show you some examples of these later on. All right, so that's a quick look at the interface for Massive X. Now there's a lot going on here, but I still do like the fact that it's mainly just one screen. All right, in the next tutorial, let's dive deeper and start looking at the individual components on the synthesizer.